Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our budget meeting this evening today is Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. I'm Councillor Neil Anstead, and I'm the chair of the budget committee this year, along with my vice chair, Councillor Nordum. And I'll call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. I'd ask the clerk to note our starting time as well. We will begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. A warm welcome this evening to staff who are joining us and others in the council chamber, as well as those watching the YouTube feed on our YouTube channel. I do have regrets this evening from Councillor Matt Richardson, who advised me that he would not make this meeting. I would like to begin by calling this meeting to order, and I'm looking for let me go back here. Call the meeting to order to approve the agenda. I'm looking for a mover for that. Councillor Nordum and Councillor Duncan. You have the vote for that, please. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, next we will move to our consent agenda, which we do not have any items listed on there. We also have to do a disclosure of pecuniary interest. So at this time, as everyone is aware, you can disclose your pecuniary interest now or at any time during the meeting. So I would ask if anyone has anything that they would like to disclose at this time. Okay, hearing none. All right, next we'll move to our reports. And we have our public engagement summary, which will highlight our summary and the highlighted points. So we'll review that. I believe Jessica is going to review that. Okay, thank you, Jessica. There.
It's on. Thank you. Good evening, Council. So as Council is aware, a full review of the 2024 budget survey results was provided at the August 28th Council meeting by staff. So tonight staff have compiled just a short key highlights presentation from the survey results to share with Council prior to the visioning discussions. As a reminder to Council, 154 responses were received on our budget survey this year. So respondents were asked to select their 5 top concerns for the 2024 budget. Those ranking the highest included traffic issues, healthcare recruitment, general infrastructure, crime, social issues, growth, development, and sustainability, and housing. Respondents were also asked to select service areas where they would like to see more tax dollars spent. The top answers on this question included public works and facilities. Respondents were similarly asked to select service areas where they would like to see less tax dollars spent. Top answers included the Stratford Perth Archives and the Stratford Perth Museum, followed by general government. Respondents were asked to rate their satisfaction with the delivery of municipal services. Lower satisfaction rates were rated for roads, property tax amounts, social services, and bylaw enforcement. To close out the survey, respondents were asked to, or invited to share any final comments they had in relation to where they would like to see more or less tax dollars spent. This slide provides a list of the most commonly noted items. So under the column of more is listed as law enforcement, healthcare recruitment, indoor swimming pool, restaurants, affordable housing, traffic issues, infrastructure, trails, and childcare. Under the less column was staffing, county, and climate change. That is all we collected for the key highlights for tonight, so I can answer any questions council may have related to that.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. Council, is there any questions for Ms. McLean on anything in the survey? Okay, seeing none. All right, next we'll move to our thematic opportunities. And as everyone knows, we do this, I guess I'll begin by going through the budget process for a refresher for everyone. So the budget will follow a similar process to last year. We will have our thematic opportunities, and from that we'll lead into our visioning session. And with the visioning session, I'm going to ask councillors to give us 2 to 3 key points on things that they would like to see included in this year's budget. And I would like to, again, remind everyone that there's no such thing as a bad idea. All viewpoints are welcome, and we're looking for those this evening. And in terms of our time, we'll just be respectful of our time. We want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. But if things are starting to run a little bit long, we'll try to rein that in as well. Okay, so tonight I gave Councillor Andreessen a heads up. Oh, I guess I should go back. I apologize again. The thematic opportunities, just so everyone is aware, the list that we're going with this tonight for this budget meeting is growth and economic development, service effectiveness, community planning and development, and corporate sustainability. Now, if these look familiar, you'll notice that those match our strategic plan. Okay, so those were the goals, the themes that we're going to go with tonight. Are there any questions before we begin? Okay. Okay, so I guess we'll begin with, I did give Councillor Andreessen a heads up that she would be starting us off this evening. So I'll begin with Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, Chair Anstead. Look forward to the meeting this evening. I would like to share and begin with one initiative I'd like to see us invest in a little bit further, and that's in terms of service effectiveness and with communication. I understand that we are definitely getting a website in place, and that will be shared with us and live by the end of the year, which is great. But the website is one component of communication, and I feel that our residents are not always up to date in terms of what's happening and what they should be aware of. And I think that a communication plan would be helpful in terms of providing better service effectiveness to our residents. Not only would it be great for our residents, but also with internal communications and working within our own organization. I think it would be very beneficial. We have people working all over the place in terms of different areas throughout our municipality, and communication can be challenging that way. So, an in-depth look into both external and internal communication, I think, would be helpful. I want to speak a little bit more on I guess I'm going to call it Transportation Master Plan. Not sure which one that fits up there, but I know Ms. McLean will find a spot perhaps, or Ms. Klein will. Our master plan is going to address the traffic issues that we have here in North Perth. And I'm very concerned that we don't really have a year-by-year plan. And I'd like to see something created so that we know what will happen next year, the year after, almost a 5-year plan, but make that public as well. And really move forward with our bypass as soon as possible. And that's going to require ongoing investment to get ready. It's not something we can do tomorrow, I understand that, but it's going to require some financial investment to get there. I'd like to speak about community well-being. And in terms of well-being, I'm very concerned about housing. We all have relatives, children, grandchildren who are going to be in the housing market. And at this point, you can have 2 individuals earning over $100,000 and still not even have enough money to buy a house. And we need to really, as a municipality, embrace this concept of coming up with a plan to support our municipality and look at some investment. In the past, we looked at adult living with Perth Meadows, and at the time it was controversial. But today, here in North Perth, we are a leader with adult living and seniors, supporting senior living, and we are considered a leader in that. And perhaps we can be a leader now in looking at more affordable housing options and looking at some investment in that. I'd like to also highlight some concerns around growth and economic development in terms of childcare. We have great childcare facilities, great childcare programs. I really commend all of our staff who are involved in those programs. Unfortunately, it's just not enough. We have children who are not able to get into those programs, and we're turning them away. And that means that families can't have 2 working parents anymore. So really, if we can perhaps look into additional childcare spaces, that'd be very, very beneficial. I'm going to leave it at that. That's my 3, and I'm sure there'll be other themes that I can agree with later on. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. We'll next move to Mayor Kasenberg.
Thank you, Chair Anstedt and Vice Chair Nordum. Recognize the work that you've done to bring us to this point. I will pick up on one of Councillor Andreessen's pieces and offer this, that when it comes to trying to solve or address the issues related to affordable and attainable housing in our community, it's time for this corporation, this municipality, to actually put money behind this plan. Now, that doesn't sound like our level of government, right? It's not something that historically municipal governments have done all that much with, although Perth Meadows was an interesting experiment 20 some odd years ago that has borne the right fruit. But I think we're going to have to look at the ability of the corporation to use its borrowing power, to use assets that are available to it to actually invest and make something happen. And we're hearing that over and over again from the province and the federal government who are trying to be partners in this, but who are struggling with the actual implementation on the ground in the local environment. So I think that 2024 represents a year where there needs to be some money on the table to actually create some spaces, some apartments, some rooms, whatever we want to call it, that start to address and show that we're serious about addressing this issue in our community. I think I'll offer just a shade further that over and over again in the presentations that I see and am exposed to in various contexts as mayor, I am seeing a lot of evidence that private sector developers are not going to do this job. It's not in their interests, generally speaking. It's costing them too much at this point. It's compromising their ability to make profit. And I don't want to compromise any of those abilities. I understand that they're in business and that's their business. But that leaves still large swaths of our population moving forward without a reasonable place to live. And if you can't live here, how can you contribute to the local economy? How do we grow the local economy? How do we build strength in our community and create desire for things like physicians to move here? We must continue to create a community that cares and that's involved, and housing is a significant piece, perhaps the root piece of our success or failure moving forward. So housing is very important, and I think it needs real dollars this time. I think when I look at some of the survey results, I took particular interest again, an interest that I took 4.5 years ago in the issue of bylaw enforcement. And it seems like our community is concerned about this issue. I certainly have heard it at the door and through the people who talk to me, there's concern. I think all of us around this council know the reality of bylaw enforcement, which is that it's pretty darn hard to find bylaw enforcement officers right now. And in fact, we've resourced that department reasonably well going back 4 years ago when I first served as mayor. We've done better, but finding the people and keeping them in their job has proven to be something of a challenge. This blends to some degree with the work that Councillor Rothwell did on calling for the province to engage around chief building officials. Same kind of problem, right? Human resource problem that we must address. Clearly, our community wants something more or different when it comes to bylaw enforcement. And so I think we need to evaluate our spending and determine how we can better meet the community demand for better service in that particular realm. And when I say better service, I think I mean expanded service. I'm not talking about quality of service, but expanded service. I think that I will agree with Councillor Andreessen's comments about the transportation master plan. It's a critical piece as well for our future development. When I look ahead 30 years, 40 years from now, the choices that we make about this transportation master plan will have significantly shaped what kind of community North Perth is. And so it's important that we begin to plot the investment, and some of that has to happen in 2024. I'm quite convinced. I'd certainly like to hear from Mr. Couch at some point in the near future about what first investments will look like, but we need to make progress there. Finally, I'll add one more. And I'm not sure which category this goes in, but I think that we are acquiring some attention for the proposal to create an agricultural science center in our community. And that attention, this council has already made a commitment to provide the land for this project. But I'm not convinced that the organization can get past its growing pains without some staff support, which is going to take some money. And so I think it behooves us as a council to consider whether we would like to make a grant to the Agriculture Science Center Committee for the purposes of them hiring someone who can help them move to the next level, which is working with the province and with creating a fundraising plan and more. So I'm leaning towards that kind of investment myself, and want that considered in our budget process.
Thank you, Mark Eisenberg. Next, we'll move to Councillor Blazek.
Thank you, and through you, Councillor Instead. This piece sort of fits in our growth and economic growth and economic development and our community planning and development. Councilor Andreessen touched on this. I would really love to see some money in our budget in 2024 for allocated for staff to dive into the issue of childcare. Are there government grants? All of this is going to take staff time, and obviously we need money for that to happen. So, where is it beneficial for us to have it? Can we dive into that? Can we research it? What municipally owned lands can we build another childcare facility on? Because I think that we need to stop talking about the fact that we need more childcare and actually build a facility that gives us more childcare. It's unfortunate to me that we see a concern from our community around staffing because this corporation doesn't run without great staff. And so it's important to leave room in our budget to become, as Councillor Ainstead said on Monday night, an employer of choice. And perhaps there needs to be some transparency around the vital roles that our staff play. Perhaps there is not enough people in this community that really know the work that you find people and your colleagues do. But I definitely think that we need to keep room in our budget for being an employer of choice. And lastly, I would like to continue to see staff engage in the sort of missing demographic in youth engagement in non-sports related programming. I think that's it for me.
Councillor Duncan?
Thank you, Chair. I guess my first one is probably under corporate sustainability, and it leads back to our asset management plans. And generally, I'm looking at infrastructure and infrastructure deficit. So what I'd like to see is staff to spend some time this year, and we put some money in the budget for them to bring back maybe an updated report on how all of the new infrastructure we've taken on since we've grown in the past short number of years here, how it's going to affect our asset management in the future and corporate sustainability. I think we all know we were in a deficit previous to all this infrastructure being added, and at some point in time, this is all going to need replaced too. So I'd like to see a little more information brought back on that. My second one is possible investigation of enhanced services from our OPP. I think it's quite clear that people want to see school bus stop arm cameras, but there seems to be a lot of red tape to try and get something done about that. So maybe in the midterm, maybe we could see more enforcement, more OPP on the roads around school bus time to help stop us some of the problems that are out there. And I guess my third one is I'd like to see us look at more environmental stewardship. I hate using the word climate change because environmental stewardship is so much bigger than climate change, and I think that there's many opportunities to make North Perth a leader in environmentally friendly practices around our municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Deputy Mayor Cullen, we'll go to you next.
Yes, thank you through you, Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for all your comments. Some of what I did have written down, but there are a few other items. As you know, doctor recruitment is near and dear to my heart and a lot of around this table. Even though we realize that the province and the feds have a lot to do with it, there is still responsibility for us to step up and to keep moving on with this project. Today, Ms. McLean and myself attended a doctor recruitment meeting at the clinic. There were 11 of us there, and it's amazing how many are passionate in what is going through around and what we may realize and what we may not realize. You know, come November 17th, we have another doctor that is leaving, which is leaving another 1,000 patients without a doctor, without going to the clinic. Now that's maybe the sad news, but the optimistic news is we're sure that there's someone maybe coming on board to relieve some of that, which may bring us down to 600. But I still think that we need to keep that as a priority, however we can. We are excited today that Jan McCaig had reached out to the BIA and Economic Development and the packages that they put together for future doctors that are coming here to learn and that to look into what Listowel is all about, to welcome them is incredible, and I just hope that we can continue to do that. So again, a lot of the items have been discussed here. One thing the last few weeks I went out and just asked, we're coming up to budget, it's time to, what would you like? And I had a conversation with CAOs now about this, and I had 3 people say that we are lacking municipal or community washrooms or restrooms. Hello? Yeah, so they said that right now with the MAP project that is going on up at the old Memorial Park would be a good site that we could maybe start to put a restroom or a washroom. So I would like us to look into that. There are different options, whether it's a self-cleaning or whatever, but that could be the start to have restrooms or accessible washrooms. Other thing at the BIA meeting last week, our Works Department does a tremendous job about snow removal, but they're requesting that downtown we have the sidewalks, snow removal a little more constant, more times throughout the day. They had a comment that there's nowhere to put the snow when they try to shovel a path that's going into their business and putting on the road, and that's just taken away from parking spaces, etc. So that is where I will stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Callum. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead. We have great staff, and the 10 of us know that because we work with the staff more than a lot of the public, but the public doesn't know a lot about our staff and how hard they work. And I think we need to enable staff to fulfill their duties and to be able to, I think the last several years in all our business plans, we've had deficits of work hours, I don't know, hundreds and thousands of hours. And I think we need to somehow enable staff to get the work done. And our capital budgets, we always seem to have a lot of carryovers. And I'm thinking if we have more staff and enable staff to fulfill those duties, then I think we would be more effective as a municipality. So that's something I'd really like to see, that we kind of stress to be able to give staff that effectiveness out there. And I'm going to go back to the mayor and Councillor Andreessen, the housing part of it, the affordable housing, and I agree with the mayor. We gotta put our skin in this game now in order to do it. And maybe there's some partnerships out there that we can look for or approach. And maybe that's the method we need to get out there, but we need to push that affordable. I think we need to look for partnerships, and we need to really push the density to keep those acres down as much as we can. So that's where I'm at. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson and Vice Chair Nordum.
Thank you, Chair Hanstead. So I think this will be under community planning and development. So as we start to look at developing the Northeast Master Corner there, I think we need to start looking at some trails possibly for bikes and try and connect it to the old railway trail there. I think that would be a great asset to get people to and from our downtown area, other than a car. And then I'll keep on banging this drum from last year, ditch and roadside maintenance. So just maybe I spray once a year instead of every other year, and add some more mowing time. So that'll be mine too.
Nordum, Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Chair Anstead. The great thing about going last is that everyone's had some great ideas. So I'll reiterate the issue of a housing plan. And my idea is that we've talked about before, and at least 3 people have talked, councillors have talked about this. But in terms of a housing plan, we want specific action, not just talk. And in particular, when we talk about partnerships, I think we need to look at some of the existing lands that we have within North Perth that could be available for privately owned, that perhaps we could partner with to see the development of affordable housing on some of those properties. And not just within the Listowel ward, but certainly in Atwood and beyond. And specifically, I would like to see a plan prepared on municipally owned lands west of the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex in anticipation for the county official plan approval for residential development on those lands. And in particular, staff time to look at other municipalities, what they've done on municipally owned lands, and looking at new ideas as well. But I think we have to utilize this time to come up with specific ideas so that when the county official plan is approved and those lands are within the residential designation, we are ready to go. The housing problem will not go away anytime soon, and we need to move forward sooner rather than later. Secondly, I'd like to see the development, Councillor just spoke about this. Councillor Northam talked about the development of the former Moore property, so the northeast lands. In particular, it's the municipally owned lands that we're looking for industrial, commercial, as well as residential development on those properties, or on that land. And in particular, we do not need the official plan amendment because the policies are already in place. I think it's important that we move forward with this as soon as possible. Third issue would be, I would like to see our budget specifically include funds for the Elm Memorial Community Center refresh. We've talked about this for years, and that includes what we're going to do with the library in Atwood. We've made applications and we were not successful, but we have to remember that many of our buildings and facilities that we have within North Perth did not rely on provincial and federal funding. We did it ourselves. And frankly, if we are expecting people to utilize our Elm Memorial Community Center and the Atwood Library in particular, we need to put some money in there because although they're fine facilities, they need help. And certainly we knew that when the Set 7 program came forward and there was minimal upgrades that were done. We've talked about some additional ones, but there's important things including leaking roof, which continues to cause a problem. So I would put that in specifically here as well. And I thought I had one more. I just stop right there. Thank you very much.
Rothwell, and there will be an opportunity for continued discussion as well. So yeah, before I go into my 3 points, just want to thank councillors for their input so far. And as I said at the beginning of this process, there's no such thing as a bad idea. And I think that some of the things that we've seen come out of our discussion thus far is that there is opportunities here and there is potential for new ideas and things that we maybe haven't thought about before. So the 3 things that I wanted to talk about this evening, again, they've already been touched on, and when you go near the end, that's unfortunately what happens. However, the first thing was transportation. I don't have to tell anyone here that our transportation continues to be an issue. And I would say that it continues to be an issue through several reasons. Number one, the age of our infrastructure. Number two, the amount of people that we have currently living in the municipality and also moving to the municipality. Number three, just the fact that we do not have, with great respect to the transportation program through Perth County, we do not have a reliable transportation program that everyone can enjoy. So I want to see some focus on the transportation master plan because, again, I don't have to tell anybody here, our population is projected to increase over the next several years, and we will have many more people moving here, and all those people have cars. So that would be my first point. My second point is talking about public safety. I want to begin by saying I think the police, our police and protective services, this goes for our firefighters as well, do an absolutely outstanding job. I just want to make sure that they have the tools that they need to be successful. And in addition to that, I want to make sure that they're thinking outside the box for ways to combat some of our issues that we have here. It's been touched on already about crime here in North Perth. I don't have to tell anyone here that seems to be a continuing issue and a continuing trend. I just want to make sure that the police here in North Perth have the resources and the tools that they need to continue to protect our municipality. And my third one, I've also talked about this previously in my last budget comments, is reserves. I think I talked about this last year and the year before. I want to see some designated funds set aside for our reserves. Again, I think that these are continue to be unprecedented times. New realities with inflation, new realities with cost of construction, cost of maintaining a service level, cost of keeping good staff and attracting new staff are things that are going to continue to be there. And that's our new reality, I think, until things change. So I would like to make sure that we do have some designated funds set aside for our reserves so that, again, we have those funds available for something that may happen down the road, which it's hard to sit here and predict. But again, if we have those funds reserved, we at least know that they're there and we can use them down the road. So those would be my three points to start. And at this point, I'll open it up for any councillors that have additional comments or additional ideas that they'd like to put forward. Yep, Mayor Kasenberg.
Thank you, Councillor Anstead. So I think there is room, just a couple of comments on other colleagues' comments and building on them in some cases, plus a new idea or two. I think there is room with regards to the physician and healthcare professional recruitment activities for the municipality to sort of step up its budget committed to that project. And I too have had interesting conversations recently with healthcare leadership in our community, which intrigues me. At this point, I think we're at $20,000 that we're committing to physician recruitment. I do think we're going to have to change it to about 100,000 in the very near future, based on some of the opportunities that lie ahead. And again, we're left with that dilemma. This is a kind of a provincial problem. It's a federal problem in some ways as well. And it's a problem that is 30 to 40 years in the making, right? They made choices 30 and 40 years ago with regards to medical school class sizes and so forth, which we're now reaping the harvest of. So it's going to take years to actually get more doctors in the system and get doctors who are committed to living outside of the cities. That's one of the huge challenges we face. And I think there are some things that can be done, interesting conversations. Sounds like the Deputy Mayor and Ms. McLean had an interesting opportunity today. And it would be interesting to compare notes, because I think there are some opportunities, but it's going to cost us. Yet, I don't think we can ignore the issue. Our community is hot on this issue, and they want change, and I think they deserve change. So some investment there is coming, I think. I think it's time. I'm going to build on Councillor Ansted's comments about public safety, and I'll draw attention to my colleagues with regards to the implementation of cameras in Memorial Park. And I believe, and I think Chief Pape is here with us tonight. She may be able to comment if we need validation. But within the first 7 or 10 days of those cameras being active, they were able to identify and deal with some who had committed vandalism in the park. And so there is a performance improvement in terms of enforcement and vigilance around public safety in that park. Perhaps it's time we thought about cameras in a few other places in our community. I'm not a big fan of being watched, right? We all have our sort of liberties that we're trying to protect and so forth. But in public spaces where there's a tendency towards some vandalism, I think there may be an opportunity for investment. Finally, I wanted to add one new idea that may or may not be popular. But I'm starting to think it might be time for us to consider building a senior community center in town. We certainly have had some organizations that have done that kind of work in our community, and God bless them for the work that they've done. But I think we're starting to accelerate the size of the senior population, and the opportunity to create a coordinated home and program for seniors in our community could lie before us. I certainly have had lots of people talk to me about it, and so I'm thinking that maybe we need a feasibility study at the very least in the 2024 budget paid for to determine what that would look like, where it might be. And it might dovetail nicely, for example, with Councillor Rothwell's suggestion about EMCC augmentation. It might be an opportunity to add a room or some room at the Kerr complex. So there, I think, are some opportunities there that we are of now the right size to act. And so I'll offer that one as a new idea that I think warrants some attention in 2024.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Those are great points. Open it up for any other councillors that had additional comments or, Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Chair Anstett. In the survey, we did see some comments from our community around a new pool. Specifically, it was stated an indoor pool. I know that we're in the process of looking at some plans for a new pool. I think at the time or at the moment, it looks like it's going to be an outdoor pool. And I think that infrastructure for that pool is really suffering. And it's probably time for us to look at a new facility for that pool. I have done some extensive research on both indoor pools from a municipal level, and unfortunately, communities around us are really struggling with their indoor pools. It's not sustainable to run an indoor pool. Unfortunately, the costs associated with those pools and the staffing associated with those pools has actually caused those pools to close in jurisdictions very close to us. So I would support us moving forward with the infrastructure of a new pool. Of course, an outdoor type of project at this time, I think would be important for our municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Are there any other councillors that have other comments at this time? Okay, I'll just add a few. Again, talking about the affordable housing piece, I do too agree. That wasn't one of my three at first, but it's one of my secondary ones. I don't think I need to tell anyone here that the latest news surrounding lands in this province is certainly a contentious issue. Again, I think we need to put some serious effort looking for partnership because, again, as has already been mentioned by several of my colleagues, it's not going to take care of itself. It's not just going to happen. It's something that we need to actively pursue. And again, I don't think there's anything such as a bad idea in this situation, whether it's different housing arrangements, different living arrangements, different units, all those sorts of things, in my opinion, are on the table. And I think that we need to be aggressive in pursuing these options because, again, this is not a problem that's going up. It's not going to go away. It's going to continue to happen. And again, with our projected population and growth that we're going to have over the next 10, 15, 20 years, more and more people are going to need houses, and more people are going to need places to live. So that would be my next comment in regards to housing and affordable housing. Are there any other comments at this time for other themes? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Councillor or Vice Chair Nord, sorry.
So, thanks, Chair Anstett. I'll kind of build on that. So, our provincial counterparts have been kind of drilling into our minds that we need to build 1.5 houses by 2031. So that's kind of approximately 7 years from now. So I had time to listen to the radio this week in the tractor, so they were talking about this. So there's a lot of sobering numbers and statistics out there. So to level out supply and demand nationally in Canada, we need to build about 3.5 million houses, and that's just to keep afloat. So, but there's even some more sobering numbers in my opinion. So the year the most housing units got built, singles, multiples, and even mobile homes in one single year was just over 257,000 nationally, and that's coast to coast. So, and that the year was 1974, so that's almost 49 years ago. So if Canada wants to build 257,000 homes just to stay afloat, it would take about 13.6 years. So just to build the 3.5 houses that are nationally, and only assuming we get back to the 1974 numbers, which hasn't been accomplished in 5 decades. So even if we do the simple math of 1.5 houses the province is wanting, so we can divide that over the 444 municipalities, we would probably end up with 3,378 houses by 2031 per municipality. But I know it wouldn't be divided equally among us all, but let's face it, they would probably be looking at some numbers a lot more that want to come to North Perth. So these are some really interesting times, and we need to make some big decisions on our infrastructure, roads, budgets, and values such as farmland preservation. That's all I got to say here.
Thank you, Vice Chair Nordum. Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Yes, through you, Chair, and just to add on to that. Having dinner this evening, maybe some of you heard it as well, that one of the big fish got $74 million this afternoon, and that was the City of London for the Housing Accelerator Fund. So that's one of the groups that we're competing with. And one of the comments that Mr. Trudeau said was that our mayors have to step up and go after this in some sort of way. And, I said, I think we're doing all we can. Our mayor is doing a great job along with council and staff. I don't know what more we can do to get this money, but there's already $74 million taken out of that pot, and we're just doing what we can to get a little piece of the puzzle.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kellum. Yeah, Mayor Kasenberg.
For context, thanks for that, to Doug. It's interesting. Our project in North Perth, the Access Center project, is a 40 some odd million, just above 40 million, probably more now because of inflation over the last few years in terms of what it would cost. So think about that, right? North Perth, population shy of 16,000, is asking for $40 million to build 41 units of housing. And London, a city, how many times our size? Do the math, right? It's many times our size, 20 times our size, got 74 million. That's actually not a lot of money in the context of the problem, right? But I appreciate what you're saying, because against the Housing Accelerator Fund, that's a chunk that's been withdrawn, and now that means, in theory, that everyone else is competing that much harder for it, right? So, agreed. Point made. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Were there any other councillors that had any other comments, any new ideas that you didn't get a chance to put into your first initial comments? Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Rothwell.
Chair Anstead, we had talked about this previously in terms of looking at our transportation network, and specifically, I think Chair Anstead raised the point. When we look at Perth Line 86 and in particular, but also Highway 23, those are our two major roads where take a lot of our traffic, either north, south, or east, west. And when we look at the amount of growth that we've had, we have talked in the past about whether, in fact, we need to look at longer periods for maintenance, earlier start, later ending, whether the county is truly going to look at 24-hour service or not. And I know Perth Line 86, we talked about this specifically, is that it's not just Perth County, but it's Wellington and Waterloo as well. We cannot expect Perth Line 86 to handle more traffic, certainly during the wintertime, if the roads aren't plowed. I think it starts, if I'm not mistaken, sometime at 4 in the morning. And frankly, when you talk to some of the people here, they're on the road before 4. So the question is, what are we prepared to do? What is the county prepared to do? And I would just say for our county councillors, it's important that we have that ongoing conversation, not just at the county with our county, but also our surrounding county and regions. The expectation of people that have moved here is that they're going to be able to go to work. And if they can't get to work, then that's the problem. They may not necessarily be staying here. So that also is important for us in our municipality as to when our roads are being maintained. And it's not just for the school buses in the wintertime, it's everything from the feed trucks and the milk trucks and everything else. So the expectation I think that we have in our community is that we need to really look at our maintenance schedules, and in particular I talked about the county for Perth Line 86, but also provincially with Highway 23. And I hate to say it, I don't think the province of Ontario seems to really care about areas outside the GTA when it comes to road maintenance. Thank you.
Go ahead. So thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Collum.
Yes, great comment. And to build on that, Councillor Rothwell, would it be prudent to maybe station a county plow in North Perth, or maybe North Perth take over Line 86? That could be a couple options, but you know, that is something that I hear daily, and there are people that leave at 4. So I'm open to any comments on that.
So go to Councillor Andreessen. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Collum. Go to Councillor Andreessen first, then we'll go back to Councillor Rothwell. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Anstead. And to piggyback on these ideas, which I totally appreciate, and thank you for raising them, Councillor Rothwell, around Line 86, is just the infrastructure alone of this road that services this community is not adequate. I have driven that road for 32 years to commute, and the commute has gotten longer and definitely not safer. People are taking risks on that highway in order to get past slower traffic. And we really need to look at least passing lanes at different areas of that roadway. And yes, it would require partnerships with Waterloo and with Wellington regions. And it's something that through the county we need to advocate for. And I would like to, down the road, that's something in terms of a notice of motion likely for the county level, I think we could address. Thank you.
Councillor Andreessen, Councillor Rothwell, go ahead.
Thanks very much. Just Deputy Mayor's comments. I understand the possibility of North Perth taking this over, but I would just hasten to say that North Perth pays a greater portion, even more than ever, in terms of the county levy. So the expectation I would have as a councillor and as a resident of a councillor in North Perth and a resident of overall in Perth County is that we need to start seeing the money spent here as well. There are very few county roads here in North Perth as opposed to down in the southern part of the county. And I think if we actually look at updated road traffic, I think we would actually see the number of trips on some of our roads are equal to or greater than some of current county roads. My expectation in terms of our budget is that we would need to shift some of the dollars that we're currently spending on our roads that are having that sort of volume to the county, and then the county would take that over, and those would be countywide costs, not just North Perth costs. And I think that's an important thing for us to look at, is that when we're paying whatever our percentage is, I think it's almost 38% now. Correct me if I'm wrong, CEO Snell. It's somewhere in that order. That's a significant amount. When we look at the county road budget, that's huge. So I'm not shooting down the possibility of North Perth taking over certain county roads and so on, but you don't get money back from the county if you do that, I don't think. And it would be a lot more cost for us that otherwise we have so many other needs within our budget. So I'm advocating more towards the county upping its ability, and I fully agree that restationing, this is not the first time, as you know, that we've talked about this, is that we need to have something that's happening where the center is in terms of generating the most traffic is coming out of Listowel area. It's not coming out of Milverton, which is where the plow comes for Perth Line 86 in terms of east. West is still Huron County, and we have fewer people going west, but certainly going into the Kitchener-Waterloo area, that's where the greatest numbers are. That also, when we look at Perth Line 72, that also has a huge amount of traffic on it that otherwise it didn't have before. Also, I believe, comes out of Milverton. So those are my points on the transportation side, and I would look at sort of a shifting of costs as opposed to us taking on more. Thank you.
Sir Rothwell, Deputy Mayor Callum, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Great discussion and final comments. So I'll retract my statement about the municipality taking it over. So as we know, my colleagues here, we did a road tour, and the most traveled road in Perth County is Line 86, which averages, I think, roughly 10,500 vehicles per day, 10% of them being trucks, which is approximately 1,100. I had the conversation with John McClellan, and he said now's the time to act. So if it's your wish, I can go to them and ask if we could put a plow full time in Listowel to clear it. It's almost they get from Listowel to Wellington County, and they turn around and they have to plow it again. So instead of coming from Milverton, I am for that for sure.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cullum. I'll just interject here briefly before we end up with some more comments from other councillors. Great ideas, again, like I mentioned at the outset of this, all great ideas. No such thing as a bad idea is kind of going to be my theme throughout the budget process this year. I am happy to see that things that have been discussed this evening were things that were listed in our survey that Ms. McLean went over previously. Things we've talked about, healthcare recruitment, law enforcement, affordable housing, truck bypass, and general infrastructure. Again, I think that's really encouraging to see that what we have seen in the survey are important to us as councillors and residents as well. Again, I wanted to touch on, and it was Councillor Blazek that raised it earlier about staffing. And you may remember from going to the survey that was one of the things that was listed as spending less on staffing. I don't agree with that. I think we need to spend money to get good people. I've talked about this becoming an employer of choice. Again, we don't have to talk about numbers here, but municipalities are struggling with people that are at retirement age. We can look at our own municipality. We have several senior staff that have retired or can retire in the next few years. So it's going to be crucial that we have the correct people in those roles so that we have a seamless transition to continue to provide good services to our residents. And the other thing I wanted to touch on too is, we haven't really discussed it yet, but capital projects, I know that's a little bit later in this process. One thing I did want to say to staff is just to make sure that when we are submitting capital projects, I used this last year as well as a tool. A are projects that we absolutely need to have, B are projects that we would like to have, and C are maybe projects that can be pushed out. I think that's a useful tool to make sure that we are putting our funds towards projects that are going to have an immediate impact on our residents. So that would be the other thing that I would like to add is a tool to make sure that staff are evaluating those projects to make sure that they are, again, things that we would like now or need now, things that we would like, and finally things that we would maybe be able to push back to another budget year. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Rothwell.
Just one other item, and it's been raised before, Chair Anstett. So on the police side, I mean, we know that there's changes in terms of our police services board and so on, and we, as I understand, we're going to see some changing with the OPP billing model at some point. And I suspect that that's going to hit us fairly hard in terms of where our growth is and where we've been and what our expectations are in terms of what we've heard from the survey and public safety as being one of the critical issues of importance. One issue I hope our members that I think it's our mayor and deputy mayor on our committee now with police services. For example, the City of Stratford's police service is now taking care of the Township of Perth South and Town of St. Mary's. As a result of them no longer being in the OPP, there's fewer people that are offsetting the costs. But one thing that most people don't understand is that the OPP are still responsible to patrol provincial highways. And that includes all of Highway 7 and 8 as well as 19, just so everybody knows. So in reality, North Perth is helping pay to patrol roads within Perth South and within the Town of St. Mary's. This does not set well if people actually understand what's going on here. Of course, the City of Stratford's police services budget was less expensive than the OPP going in because they don't have that same level of responsibility. I appreciate, I know many people in Perth South, including family members in St. Mary's and so on, but the reality is that they should pay for their own. We should not, as part of the OPP billing model, pay for patrolling roads that are not under the same responsibilities. So I would put that through to our members of the Police Services Committee, and as I say, it's overall in terms of our budget, we have to be prepared to know that we're going to see a significant increase because of our population. But if we're looking at cost containment, that would be something in particular that I think that we need to really look at. And if we need to talk to the province about this, is that jurisdictions that care to go off to another policing services should be patrolling the roads within their jurisdiction. It shouldn't just be overall OPP. That's my view. Thank you.
Great comments, Councillor Rothwell. Thank you very much for raising that. That's good, very good points. Okay, I'll ask again if there's other councillors that had other comments or other items that they would like to have included in our visioning session. Now would be a time to do that. Okay. Okay. Well, thanks again, councillors and Deputy Mayor and Mayor, for your input on the visioning session. This is a great tool, and I think it bodes really well for staff to have these takeaways to go and start doing their homework on our budget for this year. The next part on our agenda is council summation and direction. So I believe that what we have here is a good basis for comments this evening. So this is going to be, again, a good tool for staff to start with and go away from. I guess I'd ask CO Snell if there's, or any other staff at that point, if they have any questions or anything that they would like clarification on at this point.
Thank you, Chair Anstead. I believe I don't have any questions. I thought the discussion was very good tonight. I think this gives us some opportunity for staff to take this away and provide some comments back to council. I'll just look to senior staff if anybody has anything to add.
Okay. Yeah, if there was other questions that you can raise those at this point, that would be appreciated. So I feel as though we have, again, like I mentioned, a good basis for staff to move forward and continue this budget process. Okay. At this point, now would be a time to request if there is any, ask if there's any requests for staff reports by any councillors. If there's anything that stemmed out of our budget visioning session that would lead to a staff report, now would be the time to raise that. Yep, Councillor Rothwell, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Chair Anstead. And I'm not sure that this should actually generate a report, but we, at the council table, we did talk about the issue of the province's change under Bill 23 regarding development charges and the potential impact on the municipality. And this goes directly under growth and economic development. We, as I understand in discussions with CAO Snell, we don't know exactly what that amount of hit will be in terms of our implications here on our development charges. The other issue that I think we need to be aware of is that the recently announced, at least at the AMO conference, was the provincial Building Homes Faster Fund, and that 10% of that is for rural municipalities, which is a great thing. We have to understand that we are in the rural municipalities, by the way, as opposed to on the federal side. If you're 10,000 or more, you're considered one of the big guys, but we are considered to be rural, and CAO Snow confirmed that. We do not have a housing target that we've been given by the province, but when you look at what our numbers are, as Councillor Nordum mentioned, we have hefty numbers, probably some of the largest numbers that we've ever had within all of North Perth in terms of dwelling unit types. So we could be eligible for funds, but at the same point, we could be losing out on development charges. And as I say, I'm rambling a little bit, but the point is that I don't think in discussions with CAO Snell that we really are prepared to come up with what the potential impacts of reductions of development charges fees and what that will mean for our capital budget as we get to it later. But certainly we need to be mindful that that's a very real issue. However, That being said, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario have asked the province of Ontario to reconsider the changes under the, Bill 23, specifically, well, a number of them, but anyway, specifically regarding development charges. I think my hope, as presumably this council's hope, is that they will change the proposed amendments, that we will not see a reduction in development charges. But if the province does not change that, we have to be prepared to put more money in our capital budgets to otherwise pay for growth-related capital costs. And we'll see that on the capital cost side, so on the capital budget. So just not a report, even though that's under the, I'm on point, but I don't think staff really want to do a report like this because it is very time consuming. Some municipalities have already done this and the numbers are staggering. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Oh, sorry, Castillo Snell.
Just want to add to that too. One of the things that council will see during our development charges bylaw review is we have asked our consultant to try and put a number to that target when they bring back the new DC study, because then we'll have a projection on the amount of houses we predict to build, and we can they can provide us the input on what that will look like from a new provincial legislation standpoint. So council should see that within the next year. It may not be ready by the time the budget's ready, but hopefully will be. Yeah, we've asked for it to be done by the budget.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that clarification, CEO Snell. Is there any other requests at this point from any other member of council for staff reports? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward to item number 7. And 7.1 is announcements. If there's any announcements for that any councillors or members of council want to share. Yeah, go ahead, Chair and Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Chair Instead. I just want to invite council and our community to the United Way's kickoff launch. It's going to be on September the 15th, this Friday. And we've got an exciting day planned. 12:15, I think, we have some dignitaries speaking, and we'll have our big announcement of our campaign goal that we'll be trying to reach here in North Perth. As you know, the United Way supports ignorable issues like poverty and homelessness, mental health, and all these issues are near and dear to all of our hearts. And certainly this campaign will help to support these needs here in this community. We'll be having food trucks and a small vendor market, a game athlon, really fun afternoon and day. So even on your lunch hour, come and pop over and certainly give us some support to the United Way. We'll be in the municipal parking lot by Warden Up to Grove and just behind TD Bank. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Andreessen. Yes, that's a great event, and hopefully council can make it out to that. That's great. Any other announcements at this point? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move forward to item number 8, which is our confirmatory bylaw. I'll just read it for everyone here. That bylaw number 1032023 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the council of the municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed, and that the said bylaw be signed by the chair and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Rothwell, and seconded by Councillor Blazek. We'll have the vote for that, please. And that is carried. Thank you. And just before we get to our adjournment here, I just would like to announce that the next budget meeting, just so everyone is aware, is scheduled for October 18th at 7 p.m. So October 18th at 7 p.m. is our next regularly scheduled budget meeting. If there's no other business at this time, I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn, and I'll read it, the motion for everyone. That the council meeting adjourns at 8:08 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, September 18th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Can I have a mover, Mayor Kasenberg? Seconded by Councillor Johnson. And we'll have that vote, please. Okay, Councillor Nordham's in favor, so that is carried. Okay, so this council meeting is adjourned.